Thank you for listening to this PodcastOne production. Available on Apple Podcasts and PodcastOne.
Steve Austin Show is brought to you free today by our friends at BetOnline.ag. We've got a hell of a weekend coming up with the NFL Conference Championships and UFC 246 with the return of Conor McGregor. Sports betting action is going to be off the charts. Get in the mix at BetOnline.ag and use the promo code PodcastOne for your 50% welcome bonus. BetOnline.ag, your online sportsbook experts and exclusive partner of PodcastOne Sportsnet.
PodcastOne presents Steve Austin Show Classics.
Every week, we are bringing out some of the most requested episodes of the podcast from behind the archives. We have another great one for you this week, and here's my producer, Sean, to tell you all about it.
Welcome, everybody, to another classic episode of the Steve Austin Show. Producer Sean here, bringing you episode number 19. We're going all the way back to June 11th, 2013 for Trish Stratus, the WWE Hall of Famer, on this classic episode. Trish was just inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame in the same year, 2013, and she joined Steve here talking about finding her way into the WWE through the fitness world, as well as her sports acumen in high school, particularly field hockey. So she gets to explain field hockey to everybody, and also talking about some of her favorite opponents in the ring, the impact that Fit Finlay and Lance Storm had on her development. There's also a cool story in here about her recruitment to the WWF at the time, how Terry Taylor basically forced the WWE's hand in a way by him going to WCW and kind of lighting a fire under JR's ass to get Trish into the company. So some really cool stuff here. Of course, Trish Stratus, just one of the best, just one of the most gorgeous and charismatic and just charming wrestling personalities the world has ever seen. Her and Steve have a great time having a chat about all things wrestling and whatnot. Also, here's something that I caught while Steve was doing this on the episode. He mentioned doing a word of the day, which is something that I wonder if it needs to make a comeback. I don't know. Maybe we need to do that on the regular episodes. I don't know how long he did that for, but we're only 19 episodes in at this point of this recording, so I don't know how long that lasted, but I don't know. Maybe I need to make a comeback. All right. This day in Steve Austin history, today being January 16th, we start off in 1992 in Jacksonville, Florida for WCW for a night where Steve Austin wasn't there. He was originally supposed to team with Larry Zbyszko, Steve Austin being the TV champion at the time, as well as the Dangerous Alliance being in full effect. Him and Larry were supposed to team against Rick and Scott Steiner, but that did not happen. Rick and Scott Steiner defeated Mr. Hughes and Abdullah the Butcher. That sounds like an interesting match, and I want to see it. We move on to 1993 in Detroit, Michigan. We have Steve pulling double duty in the Motor City. WCW NWA Tag Team Champions Ricky Steamboat and Shane Douglas defeating the Hollywood Blondes, Steve Austin and Brian Pillman. And then in the main event of the night, WCW US Champion Dustin Rhodes and Cactus Jack defeated Barry Windham, Steve Austin, and Brian Pillman in a street fight. Then we jump to the WWF in 1998 in Anaheim, California. Steve Austin and Cactus Jack defeated WWF Intercontinental Champion The Rock and D'Lo Brown in a Falls Count Anywhere match. And finally, we wrap it up in 2001 in Chicago, Illinois for a SmackDown taping. It's Steve Austin, The Rock, and Undertaker defeating Kane, Kurt Angle, and Rikishi. I get my information from the history of WWE.com and ProFightDB.com. Okay, folks, let's take a quick break, and we'll come back with Trish Stratus on this classic episode of the Steve Austin Show.
Man, we got a wild weekend coming up with a ton of sports betting action available in the NFL and MMA. First up on Saturday night, it's UFC 246 with the return of Conor McGregor to the octagon as he does battle with the Cowboy, Donald Cerrone. Then on Sunday, it's conference championships in the NFL where we will find out what teams will be headed to the big game. There's so many opportunities this weekend to score big, so why not take advantage? Visit our good friends and exclusive partners of PodcastOne, BetOnline.ag, to take advantage of the best bonuses in the business. Sign up today for a free account at BetOnline.ag and use the promo code PodcastOne. Again, that's BetOnline.ag, your online sportsbook experts and exclusive partners of PodcastOne Sportsnet.
PodcastOne presents the Steve Austin Show Classics.
I'm very happy to have Trish here on the show today. She's going to bring a little class, dignity, and respect. She's an awesome young lady that I've known for a long time. Trish, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Trish, when I called you and reached out to you, I said it would be a real plus for this show to dig us out of the ditch that we've created with our own hands to bring us back some class and respectability and hang on to our sponsors. Thank you for coming on the show.
It's a lot of pressure for me, Steve. You're saying that I have to bring all the class and dignity to the show?
Well, just a modicum, maybe, just a little bit.
Well, I do want to, I think maybe, T plus sounds like a very interesting supplement. And, I think that if people continue to take that, that would be very satisfying. So go to onit.com and be satisfied with T plus. And then that's kind of how I'll bring class and dignity to the show, by plugging away.
You're hired. And don't forget to slash Steve.
You like it? Oh, slash it. Okay, I got it.
You know what, Trish? How long have we known each other?
Gosh, well, okay. It couldn't have been before 2000 because I debuted in 2000. So I would say we probably, I'm sure we probably crossed paths a few times over the years. But I think we really got to know each other during Tough Enough.
Right. We've got to hang around a lot, and you have a great sense of humor, and I'm a wacky guy to begin with. And anytime we sit down, it's just kind of an ad-lib type thing, and we just enjoy laughing and giggling and having a good time.
I like hearing about Steve giggling. That's cute, actually.
Giggling. I'm trying to, almost every episode of the Steve Austin Show, I do a word of the day to try to improve not only my vocabulary, but my listeners' vocabularies. I like to offer helpful hints on the show, and sometimes I don't always have that, but yes, I'm trying to work on my vocabulary.
What's the word of the day?
Well, I'm not going to do a word. Okay, hogwash. Today's word of the day is hogwash. Do you know what hogwash is? And no, it's not shampoo for a pig.
That would be a bunch of bullshit.
You're right. It's a bunch of bullshit. Now, technically, in a dictionary, it's classified as nonsense, but bullshit works on this show. Can you use hogwash in a sentence for us, Trish?
Well, I hope this interview goes well and it's not a bunch of hogwash.
Well, I can't say that it's not going to. There's going to be some hogwash involved for sure, because that's what's going to make it fun. I'll use one for you. Last night was a season premiere of Redneck Island. I watched the show all the way through, and when I noticed that my social media, Steve Austin BSR, was not plastered all over the screen, I thought it was complete hogwash. How's that for a shoot, Trish?
Wow, that's a good one. You are good with the hogwash usage, I must say.
Boy, I tell you what, I ain't afraid to call a spade on this show, or on any show for that matter. But you know what?
Dare I say you are the king of hogwash.
The king of hogwash. Here, you heard it right here, folks. It's Steve Austin. Will you be the queen of hogwash with me? That's the $1 million question.
Sir, I am your queen of hogwash.
Oh, God dang, I feel good now. And as a note, I've had a lot of complaints about me breathing too heavy into the microphone. I have deviated septums. My nose is all busted up. So I'm going to try to keep the microphone away from my breathing system while we're talking, Trish, when I ask you questions and you answer, and we're just chit-chatting back and forth and giggling about our hogwash. I want to make sure that your sound and your voice is unmuffled.
Well, thank you. And, we wouldn't want people to hear this back and think maybe you were being a little creepy. So I think that's a good idea.
If there's one thing I can't stand is a creep on a show. Can't have that. We're not going to have that. No. You're too classy, Trish, and I'm too smart. And I'm married for the 4th time, so we're keeping it straight on the up and up. Hey, all right, check it out. Let's talk about some stuff, because as long as I've known you, I was doing my research, reading up on you, and I started delving into your childhood. And you grew up in Richmond Hill, Ontario, correct?
Correct, yes.
Well, tell me, I know that you, as the diva, your wrestling persona, your wrestling acumen, your style in the ring, how ferocious of a competitor you were. You were very aggressive in the ring, seemingly not afraid of anything. What kind of kid were you growing up? Were you a nerd? Were you top of the class? Were you athletic? What were you?
Well, you've actually named a couple of the traits that I had as a child. I would classify myself as a bit of a nerd, only because I was kind of a science geek. I like to explore. I was the kind of kid who asked for a microscope set for my birthday. That was like, that was my background. I really like science and whatnot. And I was just an athlete. I think that's a lot of, people say, how did you get into WWE and find it so easy, and how did you transition so easily? I think just being an athlete, I always played sports. I played competitive soccer growing up. And most importantly, I was a big tomboy. And I would say I'm a tomboy today as well. But growing up, I had a couple of boy cousins, and I had this, it's kind of a weird thing to say, but as a little girl, I wanted to be a little boy. I wanted to be part of the boys. I wanted to play with the team, play with the guys on the teams. And so that was kind of just me growing up. I was a tomboy, loved sports, loved science. And, but then I think a lot of it translated pretty nicely for me once I got into the ring.
So then, like, report card time comes. What kind of grades are you getting? Are you straight A's, a couple of B's here and there?
No, I'm a nerd alert. There's a nerd alert going on. Yeah, I was pretty much straight A's. I always, as a kid, I wanted to be a doctor and dreamed about becoming a doctor since I was very little. And so kind of everything I did was geared towards, being a keener in school and making sure I got my volunteering in and did I played varsity sports. You name the checklist of nerdism, I did it.
But then I read you played soccer and field hockey. Were those your two favorite sports? Did you also play volleyball, basketball? What is in the Canadian curriculum for high school athletics?
Well, all of that is in the curriculum. I chose soccer was my number one sport. Played that. I played till I was about 21 years old. Actually, I played rep level soccer for my town. And then when I went to university, I played for my field hockey team there. So really, and I was kind of known as a bit of the goon on the team. So I was kind of rough and tough.
You were a goon?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, a little bit.
Oh my God! My respect for you has grown even more than it was. You a goon, and a good-looking goon at that. I just can't vision it.
It's kind of like a good little secret weapon, the good-looking goon thing.
Were you in there laying the smack down on your fellow field hockey players?
It's funny because people laugh when I say field hockey, and I know it. Listen,
let's talk field hockey. I'm a redneck. I'm from South Texas. When we're talking about field hockey, I know what you're talking about, but break that down for my listeners in the South. What does field hockey mean?
Okay, well, field hockey, I don't know if maybe this was created, maybe someone's, idea of a joke, because let me describe it. You have a bunch of girls wearing pleated skirts, and we're running around on a field. And now the stick we use, if you picture a real hockey stick, you chop it in half. You got this itty bitty stick with a little curve at the top, kind of like the Iron Sheik's shoe. Now that, I don't know who thought of that on paper and thought, this is going to be hilarious. We'll get a bunch of girls in skirts running around chasing this little ball. So it kind of looks funny, to be honest. But it's, when it came down to it, I played at the varsity level for my university, and it was pretty brutal. There was like, sticks flying and balls and faces. Oh, well, balls and faces.
Balls and faces sounds like my kind of deal. I need to sign up for the field hockey team here in Los Angeles.
Stephen was great. I enjoyed running around the field on my pleated skirt with balls and faces. What a sport, let me tell you.
Well, hey, let me ask you something. When you were at the university, and this is York University, correct? And you were studying biology and kinesiology, and I read that there was a faculty strike, so that changed your career plans. What happened? Did the school just go belly up and leave you high and dry because you had designs on maybe being a doctor?
Yeah, pretty much. The school recovered. It didn't go belly up. It didn't go bankrupt or go away or anything, but the professors decided to strike, which was kind of an odd thing. So here I was, and I told you I was a bit of a nerd, so I had everything planned. I was going to go to school, I was going to graduate, and then I was going to go to med school, and then this was my plan in life, and I was doing the volunteer work, and everything was perfectly set. And then suddenly they went on strike, and I was like, uh-oh. And so as a science student, you kind of had to sort of, the art students went back and just wrote like essays and made up for it. But the science students, everything was hands-on. You had to do your lab work, etc. So there was no opportunity to really just do a quick kind of catch up and try and get your, finish off everything. But I tell you, it's one of those things where, everything happens for a reason. And when one door closes, another one opens. And that's how my whole fitness modeling career started.
And let's talk about that next door opening up, because you were at a gym, and were you working out at the gym? Were you working at the gym when you were approached by some fitness models with Muscle Mag International?
I'm so impressed at your research, first of all. Yes. Steve, that is exactly what happened.
But you were working out. You were lifting weights. You dug the weight training as well as working there?
So I actually thought it was a smart idea for me to get a job at a gym because I was, being in that level of sports, playing varsity sports, we started to do weight training, and basically a lot of my training was at that point had been all sports specific. But this was the first time, the coaches were encouraging you to sort of train specifically for the sport and using the weight machines and getting in the gym and actually training that way. So I thought, well, wouldn't it be smart if I got a job and I will be the receptionist, but I'll be able to train for free.
You're working as a receptionist, you're working out at the gym, and then you're approached by Muscle Mag International, and you end up signing a 2-year contract as a model. Now, had you ever had any plans or designs on even entering the modeling profession?
No, it was one of those things. I'd been approached, at the mall, I'd been, approached to do the Miss Teen Canada pageant and things like that. But to me, when, I had a plan, it was like going to med school. So to me, modeling had nothing to do with my plan. So it was kind of like, oh, thanks for the offer. It's kind of neat, but it has nothing to do with what I'm doing right now. So I never really pursued it. And so I guess this time was kind of like one of those, you know what? I'm ready. Like I'm kind of just sitting around, waiting around anyway. And and then I took advantage of the opportunity. And that was the first time I met Robert Kennedy. Now he passed away about a year ago.
Yeah,
you might know him, I'm sure. Yeah. And he was amazing. He gave me my first opportunity, and basically he said to me, "Okay, I'm going to do a test shoot with you." We did a test shoot. It went really well. And he said, basically my first shoot I'd ever done, professionally. And he said, "I'm going to take you on a professional photo shoot, a real photo shoot, which was in South Beach, Miami." And he said, "Go ahead and eat, sleep, and train, and go ahead and get ready for it." And he gave me a trainer, and that's what I did. I mean, school was out of session, and that's all I did is ate, slept, and trained, got ready for this one opportunity, and that's how I secured my first contract.
Yeah, but let's backtrack a little bit. You're at the gym, you're working there, you're a receptionist. Muscle Mag International comes up to you, offers you a modeling contract for 2 years. So obviously, and I know you and I've seen you, you're hot. And you can go to, you can Google any picture of Trish Stratus and see if she's hot, or go to her website, trishstratus.com. But if you're so hot, I got to ask about your dating habits when you were in high school. Every boy in high school had to have been chasing you. What was dating like for you in the high school years and through the college years?
Well, dating, what happens when you're a nerd in high school? You might be hot. I mean, I don't know, maybe, I guess. I was cute in high school, I would say, sure. But I wasn't interested. I mean, I had a couple boyfriends here and there. I dated here and there, but I was keener.
So you're kind of interested in guys. You went on a few dates, but your school was first and foremost. The grades, the education acumen was what you were focused on?
Yep. And I'm not sure if you know this, but see, I met my husband, my current husband. I met him in high school, actually. And so he was my best friend all of high school. And we basically, he had his girlfriends, I had my boyfriends, and we were just best friends all through high school. And then I don't want to lose any listeners by mentioning this part, by the way.
She's married, folks.
Apparently at the Hall of Fame, when I mentioned my husband, I don't know if you saw that, Steve, but there was a lot of booze from Madison Square Garden.
I heard about it. He was a heel.
Ron was an instant heel. Even Vince called it. So, so I'm going to mention my heel husband at this moment. But I did meet him, and actually knew him when I was younger. He actually went to elementary school with my cousins. So I've known him since I was pretty much about 8 years old or so. Met him in high school. We were really good friends in high school. And then, about 17 years old, we began to date. We became official girlfriend and boyfriend. And I tell you, like, him and I transitioned to university, and me knowing that I wanted to pursue med school, he got it. Like, I did my thing, and we were both really focused on, like, he wanted to do his thing, kind of, become your own entity before we became a couple, so to speak. And so we both pursued both of our career paths really, pretty headstrong. And then, eventually the wrestling came and flipped my world upside down. And he was with me through all that. And then we got married 2 weeks after I retired. So I retired in 2006, and 2 weeks later we got married and started that chapter. And we're still happily married today. But
I think part of what you said was very important there. Two youngsters fall in love, and you were both very passionate about pursuing separate endeavors. And so many times when young people hook up today, it's all about, doing every single thing together. And it's okay to have, different interests and pursue things separately. You can still be a unit. And I think that makes the unit stronger when both individuals have something that they believe in and are aspiring to be, and don't put all your eggs in one basket and become codependent. Would you agree with that?
100%. And I say that all the time. I think that's what has kept us together for so long. I mean, I can't tell you how many girlfriends I have where, if the boys want to play Call of Duty online, or they want to go out to Vegas or do something like that. And the girl's like, well, what am I going to do? And that's not fair. And I'm like, cool, I'll do my thing over here. It's like, you got to have that. You got to have your own interests, have your own, it's one life, but you got to have your own life and be separate entities first and foremost. And, that just made us, he appreciated what I was pursuing. I appreciated what he was pursuing. And we just supported each other, through the way. Listen, for med school, I was at a long career to become a doctor. So he was cool supporting me. And, I kept long hours at the library and doing my thing at school. And he was like, cool, whatever you got to do kind of thing. And then that's why I think it transitioned so well, into wrestling. We were such good friends, and he got it. The first and foremost, we were like crazy wrestling fans too. So, before we used to go to wrestling events, and, so that was some sort of a passion we both had. So going into the WWE, he just got it. He understood what the wrestling world was about, and what it was going to take for me to be successful in that world.
So when you were growing up, you were a wrestling fan from the get-go, and Ron was as well?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was, yeah. We had Maple Leaf Gardens here in Toronto, so it was, I don't know, there's something about the Toronto landscape. It's just a real big part of the Toronto culture here, being wrestling fans, and obviously with the big, promotions that were here back in the day. So it's always had a big presence here, and yeah, we certainly grew up watching it and going to Maple Leaf Gardens, and it was just part of our youth. And I guess that's how I grew up. I grew up with the cousins I mentioned earlier. Ron was friends with those guys, so that's how I grew up. Watching wrestling, playing wrestling, and going to wrestling and playing sports. So that was Tomboy Trish.
Okay, so Tomboy Trish, and you're a big wrestling fan, and we're about to get into you getting into the business before you got into the WWE. How did that all happen? I read that you hooked up with a couple of guys who were doing a Toronto sports radio show called Live Audio Wrestling, and then it was, I guess you were noticed by WWE, and then they offered you a contract and then sent you to a training school. Break that down for me and tell me how that went down.
Okay, well, let's just be clear when I say hooked up with a couple guys.
Well, I digress. Sorry about that, Trish.
When you're talking to a female, you got to shift the verbiage a little bit.
Yes, ma'am.
No, I did not hook up with guys in order to get into WWE. Let's just state that first and foremost.
Yes, okay. Got duly noted. My bad. My faux pas.
Duly noted. That's a bunch of hogwash.
Hogwash Central here on the Steve Austin Show. You come on as the third host of Live Audio Wrestling with Big Daddy Donnie and Jeff Merrick. How did you meet these two individuals and get into the talking about wrestling?
Well, I had sort of there's a turning point in my career where last week we spoke, I was doing the fitness modeling, and after the contract, it went really well. I secured a number of covers really quickly, and I was kind of, the fitness modeling world was a new industry. So Bob Kennedy put me on the cover and basically said, what Vince does, basically. This is Trish Stratus. She's the newest and hottest fitness model. And suddenly the world believed it. So it worked for me. Of course, I had to carry that ball though. But I was on the cover of, Muscle Mag magazine a number of times. And so I would go on a show. It was called TSN's Off the Record. And what it was a bunch of sports athletes would come on the show and discuss current events in sports, etc. So I was kind of the popular guest on the show as like a chick because, oh, wow, a chick knows sports. So I was on,
right.
I was the go-to chick, right, for that segment. And they also knew that I was secretly a wrestling fan. So there was an event, and you were there, Steve, because I wore a Stone Cold Steve Austin t-shirt that night. But there was an evening where WWE was announcing that they would be prime time on TSN. So they had and I don't know if you recall, but Carl DeMarco, you remember Carl DeMarco from WWE Canada, right? So he was the president of WWE Canada, and he, whenever there was an event in Toronto, no matter what it was, he blew it up. It was huge. There was press conferences, and all the press had it. It was all over the newspapers, right? So because TSN was announcing that WWE would be part of their primetime programming, they had in front of the Sky Dome a live show where they had us as a panel, and I was one of the guests on the panel in front of a live wrestling crowd. Then that evening, I got to go to the show. So I was super excited. To be on the show was cool because there was fans there, and they were hollering my name, and I was kind of tickled by that. I thought that's kind of cool. There was a moment where they had said, "Who's the hottest chick in wrestling?" And I said Sable. And that's who I said at the time.
Yeah.
And then the fans were saying Trish, you are. And I just, if you watch the footage, I'm completely like, they said me. So anyway, that night they're like, oh, we'll get you tickets. So I go to the show that night, and I'm wearing my Stone Cold Steve Austin, it was a Hell Yeah t-shirt, actually.
Good taste.
And I was, I'm just supporting, and fans were coming up to me and saying, hey, when are you starting? I hear you're going to start wrestling soon. And I was like, what? And for some reason, after appearing on that show, there was an internet rumor that said Trish Stratus was spotted by Vince McMahon and expect her debut soon. So, of course, that was a bunch of hogwash.
Right.
So it was not true at all. And then, but this is how the law happened for me, the radio show. They were like, they got in touch with me and they thought, oh, wow, it's so cool. WWE's got in touch with you. When are you starting? We'd love to break the story if you want to come on and talk about it. And I said, well, I've not been called by WWE. They have not contacted me. I have no idea where that rumor started, but I'd love to come on this wrestling show and talk about it. I went on the show. It was, a hit. Like, sometimes you mesh with people's personalities.
Yeah.
It went really well. And I kind of said to them, I'm like, well, they're like, do you want to maybe come in every, couple weeks, join us on air? I said, can I come every week? This is the Keener talking. Can I come every week and talk about wrestling? That'd be awesome. So, I mean, this is like, this is like wrestling fans. Like you get to go on air, you talk about wrestling. This show was on at like 1 a.m, but we didn't care. We thought it was super cool, and the show's it's on right now and it does really well. It's a really good show still. So that's kind of how my, everything started. And it was during that time I was, I kind of like, well, there was so much hype about me possibly going to WWE, which was completely hogwash at the time. And what I did is I thought, well, let me prepare the best possible package. And I went out and I found the gym that Edge trained out of in Toronto, and I got myself trained. So I started training. And then finally, when they did call, was when I had some training under my background and was able to kind of, have my first meeting.
An autopsy not only reveals how a person died, but how they lived. I'm Dr. Michael Hunter. If you like what you're hearing, check out more dark mysteries on your TV on Reelz channel. There are shocking real-life and death stories in World's Most Evil Killers, like the quiet neighbor nicknamed the Scorpion after he bludgeoned 9 women to death with a hammer, and Rodney Alcala, the serial murderer best known as the dating game killer. Then check out the latest episodes of Autopsy that reveal what really killed screen and music legends like Walt Disney, Tom Petty, David Cassidy, and Batman's Adam West. You can find Reelz on your TV at Reelz.com. That's REELZ.com. Then check the top of the screen to find Reelz in your area.
We're going back in time to stop a mud hole and walk it dry. It's the Steve Austin Show Classics on PodcastOne.
So, Trish, I've got to ask you, my first question, watching wrestling and appreciating it and loving it are one thing, but when you get in that ring and start bumping around, it's kind of a come to Jesus meeting. How did you feel when you first started taking bumps in your training?
Well, yes, it was a bit of a come to Jesus moment for sure. But, I'll be honest, like I talk about this tomboy thing, but when I walked into the training facility for the first time, and that was with my trainer, Ron Hutchison, it was a place called Sully's Gym. And he said, well, just so you know, it's going to be all guys, though. You're going to be trained with guys. Are you okay with that? And I was like, totally. It's cool. And I mean, it was all guys. And of course, they all tried to take it easy on me, but I insisted that they didn't. And, but yeah, I mean, you definitely have that feeling. But like I said, growing up as a tomboy, I would think there's something about, and I think something about watching wrestling, when you're a kid, how many body slams did you throw before you actually learned to throw one properly,
Right.
So, I mean, I think I went into the ring kind of like understanding the psychology of wrestling and understanding what to expect. And I didn't think it'd be an easy ride for sure. So I think going in there, like knowing this is not going to be easy definitely helped. And I mean, yeah, I just I picked up on it pretty quickly. I think my athletic background obviously helped, and great trainers. And I think when the guys, got over me being a girl, if that makes sense, it was cool. I mean, they treated me like a guy, and I mean, it was just, I was taking the bumps like the guys did, and we were having matches, and it went really good. And my training went, right up until it was funny. We were it was a neat conversation, because I had actually, I had met Michael Hayes at I was doing a television show, and I met Michael Hayes, and he said, he goes, "You're the Trish Stratus. You're the fitness model that I've been hearing about you." But of course, at that point, I hadn't talked to anybody. So he had said, "Send your stuff to WWE, and I'm gonna make sure it lands in the right place." So I sent my stuff, and I had talked to Terry Taylor at one point, and you remember he was sort of heading up the talent relations at the time, back in the day, and he said, "Yeah, like it looks good. I'll be in touch with you." And I didn't hear anything for like months and months and months. And so it was during that time I was wrestling. I would say, "Did you get the call? Did you get a call? Any word?" And I was like, "No, no one's called me." And what had happened was, do you remember at that point where there was all these, WCW people went over to WWE people went off to WCW at the
big
time.
migration.
Taylor, a bunch of them. That was like, 99, I guess. So everyone had gone over there. But what Terry told me he did, he said, I got to let you know, he goes, I took he finally got in touch with me. He said, I'm really sorry about the delay. It's been months, I know. But he goes, there's just all this stuff happening. And basically, you'll hear it soon, but there's going to be a bit of a change happening. He said, but I want you to know I'm leaving WWE. I was WWF at the time. And he said, but I left your document on Jim Ross's desk. And I said, if you don't want her, let me know because we'll take her. So that was what had been happening in the background while I was learning to train and wrestle. And then that's when Jim Ross finally gave me a call, and I flew to Connecticut. And I know JR was definitely happy to hear that I had some training going because he kind of, he said, well, the little lady, let me tell you, he goes, it's not an easy sport for a female. It could be physical at times. And I told him about my background in the sports, and I told him, well, I've actually been training for about 6 months now. And so I think that, gave me a little check mark on my list there. And yeah, that was how it all
But let's
started.
talk about Jim Ross a little bit, because, when you're a newcomer in the business, and certainly green as grass, as we all are at some time, and you were, and here you have Jim Ross, and you being a wrestling fan, know of his credentials and his, announcing and just his foresight and his hindsight and his experience. When he gives you the little lady routine and it's going to be tough and all that, what are you thinking? Are you intimidating? Are you motivated just more because it's going to be challenging? What was your feeling in talking with him? Because was he trying to just, hey, this is a heads up, or was he trying to kind of put you off a little bit?
I think probably testing me to see what my reaction would be,
Right.
And honestly, to be honest, I appreciate what a lot of guys did for me. I mean, everyone from Carl DeMarco to Jim Ross, everyone is very straight up about it. Like, this
Right.
is not an easy life. And just so you know, it's not going to be, not only is it physically, it is tough, right? But on top of that, if this happens and you go on the road, you can expect this. And it was like, it really laid it out for me. And I think that helped me to go, yeah, you know what? I'm definitely, this is what I want to do. I'm willing to sacrifice all that in order to pursue this. And I mean, I think that was great that he was upfront for me, because it helped me prepare my mind to go into the business.
Well, you fed right into my next question. I was wanting to ask you about, you didn't come from the Bush Leagues. You really came straight out of wrestling school into the World Wrestling Federation. This is the number one promotion in the world. This is the big leagues. This is where everybody who's in the business wants to go. This is your first gig. So you walk in the doors, you're a beautiful young lady. You're in the locker room. What are you thinking? What are you feeling? I mean, you're looking around and you're already at the big time. What did this do for you inside your head?
Oh, it was crazy. I mean, I knew that I was blessed with this opportunity, and I knew that, the route that I had gotten was, basically the easy route. Like, I know that I had skipped to the front of the line on this one, and to see, this is probably what didn't make my entrance that easy was, I guess they started at this point now starting to coin the term divas. Right. So they, were excited. They had this fitness model who had, I think at that point, I probably had maybe, 10 covers or something that I'd done. So they knew me from my bikini world, from my modeling world. And that was kind of like, this is what she does, right? So they were excited to invite me to their first photo shoot. So while they were sorting out the details with, I live in Canada. So obviously there was some visa things I had to sort out. And it was kind of like, I had signed my contract in 99. So I signed my contract and it was kind of like, okay, sit at home and we'll let you know when, when it's time to bring you up. And so they're sorting out the visa conflict. In the meantime, they called and they said, oh, well, actually, you don't have to go to the U.S., but we can fly you to Dominican Republic, and we're going to have our first diva shoot. So you'll meet all the girls there. It'll be great. And on paper, it sounds nice. You'll meet all the girls, and it'll be nice. You guys can bond, and you'll, eventually be working together. But,
Come on, Trish, you couldn't have bonded. The girls have their claws out in this business and in general. Anyway, yes, no, everybody wants to get along in the business, but it's kick, scratch, and claw to the top. Nice to the face is also, when you turn around, you might get a knife in your back. That had to be competitive as hell and nerve-wracking.
Oh, completely. I mean, as nice as it sounded, it's going to be great for you guys to bond. I was like, yeah, I'm going to go in and be like, who's this chick? So to be honest, it was a little, hi, meeting you for the first time. I'm the new chick, and I'm going to be shooting for one of your diva covers already. Jumped at the front of the line or what? Like, not, it wasn't good. And I tried to be as humble as possible. And I was in awe too, because of course, we're watching wrestling. I've been watching Ivory. I've been watching Tori. I've been watching all these girls. When I say Tori, I mean Tori Park, and the cat, and, just seeing all these girls, it was like, I was in awe. I was like, wow. And I was, definitely trying to be as humble as possible. And excuse me for the circumstances that I got here under. I appreciate that. I'm very lucky, but it turned out well. Everything was great. The girls were great. They welcomed me. Actually, who knows? To my face, everyone was great. I'm sure they're like, where is this? They knew that once we got back to the real world or into the WWE world, she might be finding Danny on the beach. And to be honest, I think they appreciated that I came from the modeling background. So at least I was here doing my thing, which I knew how to do. So that was kind of cool. And I know Ivory kind of was like, she's an expert. Look at her pointing the toes and all that cute stuff. So it worked out. And it was a good way to kind of meet some of the girls and really get closer to them. And I think they did appreciate the fact that I, didn't just show up like, hey, I'm here to do this bikini shoot with you guys. They knew that I was like, yeah, cool, we're doing this bikini shoot. But, I was also like, came with a bunch of bruises as well. Cause I was like, they're like, oh, that's cause I'm training. So they appreciated the fact that I was actually training back in Toronto too. I wasn't this girl who's just coming to wear a bikini, basically,
And, coming with, like to your point, like you said, you were humble and you'd been training. It wasn't like you were just some prima donna who came off the catwalk and you saw wrestling and knew you could be a big star. You had an appreciation of it from the get-go. You were a fan, and here you were. And so you get past this photo shoot and all of a sudden you're entrenched and it's warfare. And now it turns into life on the road, and life on the road in the business of pro wrestling. And that's why I still call it, Trish. I know these days it's sports entertainment, but when I talk about it, it's pro wrestling. So you're out on the road, and being on the road is tough enough. How is it being a female in the business around a male-dominated industry? And certainly, to your point, there's more divas even now than there was back then, but it's kind of a male-dominated industry. And so you're out there. How tough is it for a female?
Oh, it's really tough. You're trying to, you want to stand out from the crowd. You want to show that you're one of the boys, but yet, and I think like one thing that I think people found by getting to know me, that I was kind of one of the boys. And so I wasn't, just a girly girl kind of there to, like you said, just kind of go and walk the catwalk and do the bikini stuff. And, they appreciate I was there to wrestle. And that was what my main thing was when I entered the business, was like, I want to become a wrestler. So, but no, it was hard. I was 24 years old. I couldn't even rent a car at the time. So I was, hopping rides and trying to figure things out. And I remember, Ivory said to me, the first thing you need is get a big map book and just a coiled map book. And that's what you need. There was no, I look now, there was no check your iPhone on how to get there, GPS, none of that business, obviously.
It was a different day and age. It was pay phones, and you didn't just Google something or look something up on your iPhone. You stopped and asked directions. Most of the guys wouldn't do that, and they'd drive around for hours and hours being lost rather than buy a damn map, but it was a different day and age.
See, the keener I bought the map. See that?
Well, that's the brainiac in you, the nerd part of it. Hey, so let's talk about it. You're hanging around with some pretty salty veterans. Ivy has been around, and she was a great in-ring performer and a really nice young lady, and up to speed on life, because she'd been there, done that for a pretty good while. So with you using your nerdisms or your smarts coming from your educational background, you kind of pick things up very quickly. You said you kind of breezed through training. So how was your grasp on psychology in the ring? I notice anytime I read anything about you, I know you had a pretty good relationship with Fit Finlay, as he worked a lot with the divas and is one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. How instrumental was he in your career? And again, it's kind of a two-pronged question. How was your relationship working with Fit, and how quickly did you pick up the psychological aspects of the business?
I think with the psychological side of things, and I truly believe this to this day, and we saw it in Tough Enough, Steve, that we saw this. It was like either you got it and you get it, or you don't, period. We can teach you and we can guide you along, but you have to be able to watch a match and be able to dissect it and understand what story is being told here, and understand the psychology behind it. And that's just something that's part of your your mindset. You just get it or you don't, or you think it's a bunch of steps that you're going to try and pull off in order to make this move. So I think I certainly just had it in me, and I think work with the work I did at Sully's gym, he was really great about really focusing on the psychology side of things. He wanted us to understand why these matches were being put like this, and he'd challenge us, okay, put the match together, and he'd want to know why, explain this to me, and he would make us actually, before we told the story physically, tell me the story, tell me what you're going for. Like, encompass the story for me. So he was really, Ron Hutchinson was great that way. He really, I think that helped to bring it out. Cause I think I knew it inside by watching from so many years and appreciating the storytelling side of things, wrestling from so many years. And then Ron bringing that out of me during my training before I got in. And then, honestly, I was just blessed to be, once I started working with Fit, he and he is honestly I would say one of my best friends in wrestling for sure. We were like frickin' frack. We had the same thought process, and people would laugh. We had we'd go, we should do that, and we'd say the same move at the same time, and he appreciated my enthusiasm in the beginning. It was just like, I want to try this and I want to do this, and you mentioned Lance earlier. Lance was really instrumental in my development as well. Every week we would get in the ring every single day. That we were on the road from the house shows right to the Raw events. We were in the ring, and Lance was awesome about getting in the ring with me, and like Fit would get us to do stuff. And it was great. I was watching Mortal Kombat and I saw Sonya do this move, and we kind of, it's not going to work, Trish, but we can make it work like this. And that's kind of how Stratosphere actually was created, that first move in the corner that I do. But so like having people like Lance and Fit, in my circle, helped me tremendously, and just being able to really understand it and coming from reading Fit's mind and getting to just feed off of him just helped me tremendously.
Lance is a straight shooter and Fit is a no bullshit guy. So how were they in dealing with you? They just tell you like it was? Basically like you're a guy? Were they trying to sugarcoat things? Or they just, giving you the straight up mechanics? Because one of the things about Fit's style in the ring, he had a real mean streak. He was a real ring general. He was just outstanding in execution. So I can only imagine that in training or in instruction, he's just very efficient and straightforward, and it's easy to soak up. Whereas if you might be a little bit towards a prima donna state, might not appreciate what he's telling you or absorb what he's telling you.
Yeah, and I think that was sort of his thing where he was going to be Fit. Fit was going to be Fit, and if you could handle Fit, then you're in his books kind of thing, He was very straight up with me, and his number one line to all the girls was, "Hey, this ain't ballet," Right. And of course that became my favorite line afterwards, to these girls who came in afterwards and stuff. But it just, he treated me like he would treat a guy in the ring. And that's that's even from Sully's gym. That's what I wanted. And, I think when he saw that I was, accepted that and responded well to that, then, I won his heart that way.
Trish, when I watched you, when you worked heel or babyface, you were outstanding at both. Whether it's your charisma, your looks, your presence, from the babyface standpoint, or to my fans who have just started listening to the show, portraying a good guy or good girl, as it is, versus a heel. I loved you as a heel. It looked like you were having a blast as a heel, and heels always have to have fun, but they seem to have fun doing bad things. Which did you prefer?
Oh, yeah, being a heel for sure. Babyface, I was really lucky the way I think my career path went. I got to explore being a babyface because, I was the underdog, right? I was this girl who I think this chick can wrestle. She's the newer girl. We haven't really seen her in the ring, but I hear she's got a wrestling background. And I was lucky to be able to develop in front of the audience's eyes. Like they saw me trip and fall. They saw me get up and try again. The classic underdog story. And so they were with me that whole way, which is why I feel I have this bond with the audience that they kind of, okay, come on, she can do that. And like, oh, she's doing better. And they could see that I was like, I need to get better at this. I got to get better. And they saw that drive I had every week. So I think, being a babyface under those terms, it really worked for me. And it made me, become who I was, let me reach that point, as a new person in the ring, you have to get comfortable. I always say to people, you can learn to wrestle all day long, but it's a whole another game once you enter the WWE ring and try to wrestle and have a sports entertainment match, so to speak, right? So you're learning not only like I have moves, but now you need to learn to communicate with the audience and learn to translate what these moves mean, etc. So, I was like to be a babyface for all those years in the beginning was perfect once I got into the ring. And then, even becoming heel, that was, it was a fluke. It was literally like a last minute call by Vince. We were doing the storyline with Jericho and I and Christian. It was like that love triangle we were doing.
Remember?
And, I was supposed to, the closure of the storyline was supposed to be, like Christian was coming between me and Jericho. And the closure of the storyline was like Trish Stratus and Jericho were finally going to get together at WrestleMania. And actually we had plans to go on and become this quirky babyface couple that really, there hadn't really been a duo like us, kind of like we thought would be kind of quirky, and there really wasn't a duo like that. So we thought that'd be a lot of fun, and we were really looking forward to it. We were calling ourselves Tristopher, and, you know, it was going to be some good stuff. And last minute, of course, Vince goes, got an idea. Like I'm talking about it right.
The old Vince, I got an idea story. Go ahead, tell me the idea real quick. What happened?
Yeah, so right there and then and there, like instead of me leaving with Jericho, it was like, how about you slap the piss out of Jericho's mouth and then you leave with Christian and then you kiss him at the stage. And I was like, oh, well, that's different.
You know, when Vince drops one of those ideas on you and it sounds wonderful on one hand, and on the other hand, you think, God dang, what if it doesn't work and it's just a drizzling shits? But you're so intrigued by it, and you know the guy is so smart, and you've got to try it. And you can feasibly shoot it down depending on your power level with your tenure in the company. But it's very tempting, and Vince is such a salesman, and he's a third generation promoter, and he operates with his brain and his guts, and when he feels something, he's usually right. So you take this leap of faith, and then everything just went gangbusters for you from the heel run?
Absolutely. Yeah, you're right, because boy, there was that, I was kind of fighting it a bit. I was like, I don't know. I was like, but fans want this, Vince. Fans want Chris Jericho and Trish Stratus to be together, and we both tried to kind of, and then you just knew, he has got the look in his eyes, you're like, no, there's no change in his mind. And then you kind of have to do the thing that you go to Vince, you know what? Trust. Just trust. And boy, he was right on that one, man. So that's when I turned heel. And I remember there was a big shock at WrestleMania 20, and people like had no idea that was like a really, nothing like a good heel turn where no one expects it, you know? And it was just, wow. I mean, I flourished. I got to just do a whole different side of things. And, you know, I remember my first promo, I was like, wow, I can be facetious out loud now. Excellent. You know, and I loved it. I was such the best part of my career for sure. I enjoyed it a lot. Yeah. And to be honest, if I went back and Vince said, all right, you got to come back. What do you want to be, a heel or a babyface? I would 100% go back heel.
God, I'm the same way. I made my strike as a babyface, but I loved working a heel. Who was your favorite opponent? My favorite
opponent, gosh, it's hard to list them because everyone kind of had like a different.
Just give me three.
We're kind of just quickly say it.
Yeah.
All right, let's say I'm going to say Amy and I had I'm going to say we had the Rock Austin-esque chemistry, if I dare say.
Very much so. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so Amy was probably, we had it from the beginning. We came in at the very same time. We kind of grew, we grew like maybe just like a relationship. She did her thing while I did my thing together separately. But then when we came together, it was beautiful. So I think, her and I have that chemistry. But, I can't deny, having the great matches I had with, I would say, Victoria and Jazz. To me, those girls like that, those matches that I had with those guys, they were wonderful and generous with me. And I mean, Jazz, I learned a tremendous amount from her. She's just
those were great athletic wrestling matches done by women. Great athletic wrestling matches. That wasn't fluff. That was work. And I enjoyed watching those matches. And with your career, you had a very physical style in the ring. You weren't afraid of anything. From an injury standpoint, how are you feeling now?
Oh, amazing. Yes, I have missing knuckles and broken nose a few times and ankles both busted and back and all kinds of stuff. But so that's actually was part of my retirement. But since I found yoga.
You left after 7 years in the business. Any regrets about leaving as soon as you did?
No, I was ready. I was definitely ready at that point. I had done exactly what I wanted to do. And when I say exactly, I don't, obviously it's a constantly evolving industry and everything, it's a landscape that can constantly change. But at that point, I had worked every woman that was a worker in the company at the time or was planning to. Mickey James had just come in. I was very glad that she was the new girl. I got to work with her. And so I got to work with everybody I wanted to work with. I had done the heel thing. I did the babyface thing. And I had a nice, good, robust career, I'd like to say. And then I was just ready. I was just, and injuries were starting to add up. It was like I had dislocated my shoulder one time, and it was an injury that I was like, I can't throw my flippers like I need, you would have that nagging injury that never went away. And, it was time. I just knew it was like, it's time to move on.
It's time to move on. But did you have any withdrawals when you left the business? Did you miss it?
Well, I really didn't. And really? That's why I always go back and I say I knew I made the right decision because I didn't miss it. I watched it and it was cool. I mean, I got to go back and I was watching wrestling as a fan again. I got to sit back on Monday nights and enjoy it now, which was nice. Hadn't done that in a few years. And then I just was a great opportunity because I did a couple TV shows when I retired, and it was, I had some, I kept busy. To be honest, if I retired and went home and sat on my ass, it would kind of be like, this is boring. I should.
Well, yeah, because you're young, you have other goals in life that you want to accomplish. But how hard or how did it feel for you to return to what I call a civilian life? You get in that habit of packing your bag, you're on the road, you're home for 2 days, you're back out, you're just living on the go. How hard was it to return to just a regular life, or as regular as it could be with your schedule? Yeah,
it's pretty. It was hard because you're used to this pace, so you're used to this kind of frenetic pace, and so all of a sudden you have to, kind of calm down a little bit. And it's funny because I kept saying I'm retiring because I just want to, and I needed a breather. I mean, I took a good couple months off. And I was able to just kind of chill, and I was like, "Oh, this is nice." On the weekends, I can go to a barbecue with my families, and it was nice at first. But yeah, I got a little restless. But thankfully, actually, the very first, I think it was maybe only 2 months later, I got an offer to do Armed and Famous. Did my cop show? Right. I got to do that show, and so I got kind of hit the road again. I hit the road, moved down to Muncie, Indiana. Trained to become a police officer, and then was fighting crime for a few months. So I guess that took care of the any boredom that might have set in.
Here we are in 2020, and that means it's time for a fresh start. A good place to begin should be with your bank account, so why not save some cash with our friends at Geico? With Geico, it will only take you 15 minutes to save 15% or more on car insurance. Geico has been offering great rates and great service for over 75 years, and anytime you need help, you can speak to one of their trained specialists 24/7. Go to geico.com and start saving cash. Extra money in your pocket? It may just be the most rewarding thing you do today. All right, everybody, give me the go-home cue. It's time to wrap up this podcast right off in the sunset. Hey, don't forget to rate and review the Steve Austin Show on Apple Podcasts, and tell your friends to check us out. If you want to reach me here on the podcast to tell me to fuck off or suggest a guest, send an email to questions@steveaustinshow.com. I don't know if you've been tracking it lately, but the best damn IPA on the planet is Broken Skull IPA from El Segundo Brewing Company. And if you go on their website, elsegundobrewing.com, I guess you can get on the interactive map and find out exactly where Broken Skull IPA and the other El Segundo Brewing Company beers are sold. We're on the East Coast in Jersey, New York, and Massachusetts. We made our way to Oregon. We're all over California now, north and south. And we're looking to go into Texas, Nevada, where I have the Broken Skull Ranch 2.0, has not been as cooperative, so we don't look to be able to get to Nevada for certain untold reasons. Pain in the ass. But anyway, we're looking to expand in 2020 with a lot of good things coming as far as the expansion and the growth of Broken Skull IPA. And I want to thank everybody for sending me your pictures and tweets via Twitter. And to see that you are enjoying the beer. Enjoy it safely. It is a 6.7% ABV IPA beer, and that's the best IPA in America, and that's the bottom line. If you haven't tried it, you need to. Don't forget, King of Attitude shirts, Broken Skull Ranch shirt apparel. Broken Skull Ranch shirts are available at ProWrestlingTees.com/Steve Austin. And as requested, we have finally the camouflage hats done in neon orange and in neon lime green available at ProWrestlingTees.com/Steve Austin. Cold Steel, my brand of knife, the Broken Skull and the Working Man. Find them at my Amazon store. Just go to Amazon.com/shop/Steve Austin. And I want to say one more thank you to all the fine sponsors of the Steve Austin Show, especially Geico, Health IQ, and BetOnline.ag, because that's how I'm able to do this podcast for you twice a week for free. Please support them because they support us. And if you need more info, check out the show description to this episode for details. Folks, I've been riding a lot lately, and if you ever see me ride, you'll probably see me riding a Kawasaki, and that's the bottom line. Until next time, my name is Steve Austin, and I will catch your ass down the road.
Thank you for joining us for another classic episode of The Steve Austin Show. Please leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts and tell your friends. For more Steve Austin Show, go to PodcastOne.com. That's PodcastOne.com.